So I want to address a general question that I get quite frequently, and it's along the lines of why is it that some men with Asperger's fall out of love seemingly overnight, especially in the early going of the relationship? Well, I wouldn't say falling out of love overnight is necessarily common for men with Asperger's or high-functioning autism, but it certainly does happen more so in the early going of the relationship. As a counselor who has worked with many couples affected by Asperger's and autism, what I see most often has to do with the fact that most men on the spectrum are very task-oriented. And oftentimes the scenario plays out something like this. In the beginning, the new girlfriend is the man's new task. He works on getting her to like him, to go on dates, to have sex, and so on. Also, in the beginning, he may try very hard to appear typical. In other words, he tries to avoid exhibiting any traits that may reveal his condition. So once he feels that he has won her over, so to speak, he begins to feel more comfortable around her. And it is during this time that he lets his guard down a bit and begins to exhibit some symptoms of the disorder that his girlfriend picks up on, although she may simply view his behavior as rather odd at the time. This is before she does her research online to see if he may have Asperger's. Anyway, once he has achieved his objectives, mission accomplished, right? In other words, he has completed the task of getting her to be with him. Unfortunately, due to mind blindness issues and problems with empathy, he doesn't understand that the relationship task is never ending. As most of us know, couples need to work on the relationship throughout its entirety, providing ongoing nurturing, love, and support. But this doesn't make sense to men on the autism spectrum. They think they have officially arrived and there's no need to continue to work on the relationship. Think of it like this. Let's say you live in California and drive to a vacation destination in New York. Okay, that's a long, hard drive. Once you arrive at your hotel in New York, for example, you wouldn't continue to drive in circles in the parking lot of the hotel because you've already arrived at your destination, right? So, as odd as it sounds, this is analogous to romantic relationships in the mind of an individual with Asperger's or high-functioning autism. He thinks, I'm here, the work is done. Another issue that results from mind blindness and empathy deficits, we'll call it, which are two traits of the disorder, has to do with the Asperger's partner confusing love with obsession. I've talked to many men on the spectrum who thought that they were in love, only to find out that it was just an obsession or a special interest in the romantic phase of the relationship, which is roughly the first 3 months or so when everything is non-committal, fun, interesting, and so on. So once the romantic phase is over with, now the real work begins, right? It's no longer a party. For example, he has to have conversations about things that may not be so fun. For example, he may have to listen to your past troubles, trials, tribulations. He listens to you sharing your past, which is what most people do in order to build trust and a bond. He may have to go with you to family gatherings, and socializing is not a strong point of people with Asperger's. He has to work on conflict resolution, which is another skill that is typically lacking. He has to deal with the anxiety that goes with moving to the next level of the relationship, such as a proposal, marriage, having children, raising children, and so on. So now, in the mind of some men on the spectrum, the relationship is getting too messy and complicated, quite honestly, and therefore they kind of rethink their commitment level. So this certainly doesn't happen in all cases, obviously, but I can tell you from experience, the scenario that I just described is often typical in the case where he allegedly just falls out of love, quote unquote, overnight.